break had a good one. Can I also welcome those who may be watching from home? And firstly, can I introduce Cabinet members? I'm Peter Fox, Leader of the Council, and if I'll go to my left.
Bob Greenland, Deputy Leader.
Phil Hobson, Deputy Leader.
Jeff Burrows, Cabinet Member for Social Care and Health.
Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Liz Hackett-Payne, Cabinet Member for Education and Learning.
Brian Jones, Cabinet Member for County Operations.
Giles Howard, Cabinet Member for Environment, Public Services and Housing.
I have two opposition leaders. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Councillor Dimitri Petruni, Leader of the Labour Group.
Councillor Howarth, Independent Leader.
Thank you very much, everyone. We are also joined by many officers, and obviously we will introduce officers as they enter the discussions as and when. Okay, can I move then on to apologies for absence? Full house today, so no apologies here. Then on to item 2, declarations of interest. I'll declare an interest myself personally, and I will be leaving the meeting for item 4.1, additional learning needs, as I have an interest within that. Other members? Okay, thank you very much. If you find an interest, as usual, throughout the meeting, can you declare it and also fill in the appropriate pro forma? On to item 3, consideration of reports from select committees. There are none. And then just before we go into the item 4, can I share with you that item 4.7 will be deferred. There's further work needed on that from our perspective. We need to understand a little bit more. So that will come back to us in due course, but it will be deferred for today. With that then, I'll move us on into the bulk of item 4 and to consider the following reports. And the first one is 4.1, additional learning needs. As I said, I will leave this part of the meeting and Councillor Greenland will chair.
Right, thank you. The report takes us on in the proposed strategy for the additional learning needs service across the county, and so to introduce this, Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader. May I first of all thank the author of the report, Stephanie Hawkins, who has done an awful lot of work to bring to us today the second stage in the ALN review. Stephanie is with us today, and I'm sure she'll be very happy to answer any questions if needed. So thank you very much for that. In many respects, this report, this review of additional learning needs, has been driven by Estin's recommendations. Estin stated that, as an authority, we had too many statements of educational needs. This was too high for our county, and that the resources that were directed towards the statutory process for assessing these additional educational needs was too high, and the resources could actually be used in a better way. They also said that our strategic planning was weak and data was not collected regarding pupil progress. There was also a lack of specialist facilities for pupils with ASD and behavioural difficulties. To be able to start addressing this, we needed to look at additional learning needs. The actual service itself had not been looked at or reviewed in probably about 10 years. So it was certainly time to do that. When looking at this service, I know that officers have met with parents, and as much as Estin are driving this forward, parents' views also have been a great driver in asking parents what their views are and how they see the service that is offered to them at the moment and how they feel that that could be improved. So to address these shortfalls from Estin and to take on board parents' concerns, we have started a review of additional learning needs, and we are in the second stage at the moment. The first stage came to Cabinet, and today we have the second stage, which we are asking Cabinet to agree on this strategy. This review is designed to ensure equality of opportunity for all pupils in Monmouthshire and to direct resources and support where they are most needed. So that is actually quite an important part of this. So we're going to ensure that resources are where they are most needed. This report today, this stage 2, is basically, there is a diagram with it, which I'm sure you've all seen. It sets up a north and south provision and having a central management team in the centre. There will be a service level agreement for schools to be able to use the service, whereas at the moment it doesn't quite work like that, but in effect the authority will continue to fulfil all its statutory duties towards its Monmouthshire schools. Monmouthshire schools do have a delegated budget to support this service level agreement, and the work that has been done has also been with schools. It's been the budget forum, primary head teachers, cluster head teachers in the north and south. So an awful lot of work has been done, and I'm sure Stephanie Hawkins will pick me up, I'm not right on this, but in general, all schools are buying into this and see it as a way forward. So I bring this to Cabinet today and ask for the next stage to go forward. I would also like to point out, because no doubt it will be picked up on, that we are in economic times at the moment, and that goes without saying. All councils, whether they're in Wales, England or anywhere else, have hard times. We have budgets that are cut. And running alongside everything we do, there is the annual budget. So when we were looking at the budget mandates, we also had to consider if there were any ways in addressing additional learning needs that could also be fed into the budget process, and there most certainly was. So that is also there, but that is not the driving force, and I want to make that quite clear. That was not the driving force for this review. The review was to make the service better than it is at the moment, but to address the changing needs within the county. The needs have changed over the last 10 years, and we want to make sure that we are actually addressing those in a right and proper way. So I bring this to Cabinet and open it up for questions.
Thank you. Just before I open it up for any questions from Cabinet colleagues, Stephanie is the Principal Officer here responsible for ALN. Would you like to add anything at all? Thanks for that. So we are welcoming the report. It obviously is taking the service forward in a timely manner and making improvements to the service that I'm sure we would welcome. Cabinet colleagues, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Leader. I just picking up on a point that Councillor Hackett-Payne made towards the end of her introduction. Clearly, whenever we take a review like this, it's the service that we are providing which is paramount, but we must take the opportunity of looking to see if we can reconfigure any financial aspects of it, and that has been done in this case, but I'm satisfied not to the detriment of the service being provided.
Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Petruni.
Obviously, we are totally against any cut of £120,000 for additional learning needs children. And I'm just wondering, I note that it's coming from school budgets, or i.e. they're paying for a service level agreement. So it's coming from school budgets, and given the savings required from schools over the next 3 to 4 years of £3 million, how can we justify a further £120,000?
Thank you. May I just say that the service is not being cut. The actual service itself is in the same form it was before. The way it's being resourced is slightly different, but the service itself is not being cut. And you may laugh at that, but that is actually true. You cannot cut the service to children because that would not be the right and proper thing to do. This is the same service, if not better, addressing the needs of the county, but there is a service level agreement in this of which schools already get money to pay for it.
Thank you for pointing that out. So we're not talking about cuts here. You might want to put a political spin on it, but we are talking about taking a service forward. Well, you can puff as much as you like, but the truth sometimes is better heard. Sorry, Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Could I just ask a quick question there? Did this go to the Select Committee? Because I don't see any notes of consultees as Select Committee. And if it did so, are the minutes in there of that meeting, of what was said within that meeting? Because generally we do publish them in reports if the Select Committee has made comments or what their views were on this document. I've got to go along with my compatriot at the side of me there, is the schools will be funding this saving. It will be coming from the schools. Overstretched schools with budgets they're going to have to manage. We have schools which are in surplus. We have schools which are in deficit. If this brings schools into a more deficit position, I'm not happy with that, and I'm sure some schools will struggle. We said we would review this. It's part of the ESTIN. I've got no problems with that. If it's part of the ESTIN review of making things a lot better for the children and for the schools as well, and making sure we can operate better. But I still am concerned that this is going to come from the schools' budgets. And I want to know, will we be reviewing this and what timescale it will be? And did the Select Committee make any comments as reference to this report?
Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Thank you. Actually, if you read the report, it says in there that it will be reviewed on an annual basis. Yes, it did go to Select, and I know Select are meeting tomorrow, so the minutes haven't been okayed yet, so that's probably why they're not in here. But it did go to Select, and the points were made.
Okay, thank you for that. If there are no further comments, we'll move to the recommendations, which are in 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. I won't take them separately. We'll take them together. Members in favour? Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. Giles, could you call Councillor Fox in, please?
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Councillor Greenland. Okay, we go on to the second report, 4.2, and that's a review of Children and Young People's Directorate suite of performance measures. Councillor Hackipane.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I bring this report forward, and I think in some respects it shows the confidence that we have with the data that we're being presented with to date. When we went through Estin, when we were originally inspected, and afterwards, I think we had to address the data issue, and in many respects we had all the data we possibly could, and now is a point going through Select and picking up perhaps a slimmed down version of the data that we're going to actually receive. It doesn't mean that all the data is not being collected, it still is. That data is available to all members, either on the hub or via Select Committee, but it's just making it, in effect, easier for us to be able to challenge. I would like to make one additional recommendation, if possible, Chairman. We have basically rationalised the report here, but I think it would be quite prudent to actually add another addendum to Appendix A, so that in addition to the monitoring of the percentage of schools in the uttermost quartile, we also propose an additional measure to measure the number of schools performing above the median at all key stages. I think it would be quite prudent to have that there as well. So in many respects, I think this has come through our confidence as a council in looking at data, and that has been borne out by Estin and the Welsh, the corporate assessment which we had recently. So I bring this to Cabinet and think that it's a very good idea, and it shows how we've progressed through the process of looking at data and being able to question data that's given to us.
Thank you, Liz, and I welcome this report. Anything which clarifies the huge amount of data we have into a form that we can really challenge in the correct way and get the information we need is always welcome, and this is clearly going to enable us to do that. So welcome the report. Pretty straightforward, pretty clear. With an added measure, as you suggested there, we'll add that in a recommendation. Colleagues, can I open it up? Anybody want to add? No? Councillor Petruni.
Yes, thank you, Leader. To welcome this. It's a great innovation. I've always said that, and the data represented here looks good. Just a point of clarification, if I may, on Appendix A. The frequency, that's not going to how it's actually going to be laid out, is it? Hopefully we'll show a comparison of other years. It's not going to be just 1 year, is it?
Can I invite Matt to just shed light on that for you?
Okay, thank you, Leader. Just for clarification, what you will see in terms of reporting this won't be exact that format. This is just a list of the measures that will be monitored. It will be much more in line with the format that councils are used to seeing on the hub, where we have trend data, and as we've just said, even though we've pared down the measures that we're looking at in terms of a medium to high level view, those extra comparisons will be available through the hub, but it's about kind of appropriateness of how we're reporting this various audiences, and if councils still wish to dig down a little further via the hub, for instance. You'll notice in 3.7 on the report there we've got a discussion on appropriate benchmarking, where you'll have a RAG status on our Welsh ranking, but also if you wanted to dig down a little further, for instance, we have the other authorities which are statistically similar to us, which is important in terms of how we benchmark ourselves, and that's the kind of information that you'll be able to dig down further and further. But this will be reported certainly with the trend and target data as you're used to. Thanks.
Thank you, Matthew. Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. May I just ask one question? How much of this data, you're saying it's going to be on the hub, how much of this data will then be made public domain? What will be confidential? Because if we're collecting data for ourselves, surely annual reports from schools have a lot of data in, which go to parents. How much of this data will be public domain?
Well, I'm sure there's others will... Paul, Go on, Chief Exec.
Leader, I think clearly it will be at Council's behest, but the way that we've designed the hub, as I guess members are becoming more and more comfortable with, is as an information and data source that you can access when you want to, looking at particular issues that interest you, i.e. you are, not that you ever were, but you are absolutely untied from officers needing to provide you with information that's there for you. Our ambition is to actually take that from an internal resource to be an external resource. You'll recall that on issues such as how we spend our money, I think we remain, if not the only one of the few organisations in Wales that have been transparent about that on our website for 3 or 4 years. And it would certainly be my intention to have all of our performance data as a matter of course accessible through our website, so that it aids our goal of being as transparent and as open as we can be.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. That's what I would have said as well. It is our aim to make all of the data we currently hold in a hub accessible to all. And the data on individual schools there's a lot of that data is already out in the public eye. You can go onto the Wales Government website, My Local School. You can find exactly the data around individual schools, where they sit in their families, and various stats around those individuals. So there's already a lot of data out there. Hopefully we can enhance that opportunity to access data through our involvement of what we've already got. So it bodes well for that, from that side of things, I think.
So the answer is not yet, but very soon, yes?
Yep, very soon, as soon as we can evolve it from the hub onto the website, that is our aspiration. Okay, like I say, but if you want to access the information about your own individual schools, or you want to share that, you can encourage your members of the public to look at My Local Schools. That website is really, really useful. Okay, so the recommendation then in 2.1 is, well, perhaps Liz, can you read out the additional recommendation? First one there, 2.1, is recommended that Cabinet approve the proposed suite of performance measures as shown in Appendix A, and
the additional one is to monitor the number of schools performing above the median at all key stages.
Okay, thank you for that. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Matthew, but both Matthews actually, Matthew Lloyd, Matthew Gatehouse, for all the work you've done in pulling together this. I know it's been a fair piece of work to condense that 100 and odd indicators down to something which is really usable for us, and that's a good step forward. I thank you for that. Okay, let's move forward then to the community coordination and small local enterprises and interim evaluation. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Leader. The report you've got today in front of you is a really good report. I'm delighted to be able to offer it to members. What we have here is a brief interim report which was kindly given to us by Nicola, and I thank you for that. I want to take this opportunity to welcome both Ashley and Heidi, our community coordinators sat at the back, who've taking time out from doubtlessly a busy day. So thanks for taking time to join us today. Back in 2013, Cabinet committed some very scarce resource to a two-year learning exercise about how we can help facilitate communities to become more connected and be able to coordinate themselves in providing services to individuals who start to become on the threshold of need, getting people to, instead of forming a line and looking at social services, to form a circle and look to themselves to see how they can help each other. So what we have is a two-year program, and we're now well into just after the first 12 months. And what is particularly pleasing with this report is the fact that something that is potentially so subjective in the context of outcomes for individuals, to be able to capture already the quantitative value that this is bringing in terms of resource as far as the individuals are concerned, for us as a council to ensure that we continue to focus what resources we have on those that really truly need, those who are having far more complex and multi issues of disability that need our care and our resource. So we've got a great opportunity here to actually start to find ways for communities to be a little bit more self-aware, self-assured, building self-esteem for those people who are actually starting to become aware of what community coordination is really all about. In section 3.4, you will see some of the things that have been happening out there, and again in Appendix 1, we can see quite clearly in things like the graph that shows the position of demand against demographic pressures that we as a nation know are out there. So absolutely a great first-class story that's starting to emerge. I know that we talk about community coordination endlessly, but this is actually only the start of a very long process. It will take months and years if communities are really going to get a sense of what they've got already within their own self, if they actually know where to find it. So a super report, very, very pleased to be able to represent this and offer this today, and happy to take any questions. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Jeff. We have the author of the report, Nikki Needle, with us today. Nikki, is there anything you'd like to add at this point?
No, I think Councillor Burrows captured everything we'd want to say.
Great. And it's good to see our two coordinators with us, Ashley and Heidi, today. Welcome. And thank you for all of the work, because this was a new step for us. And you're spearheading it and really making some fantastic progress, which is clearly evidence. So it's really great to have this feedback at this interim stage, and bodes well for us and how we can roll this out further. You know, the way we're exceeding our targets, well, hopefully we'll exceed them. I know at Q3 we're reporting on here, but some really, really solid and good progress, and you know, an excellent scheme going forward. So, colleagues, can I open it up to you all?
Yep.
Councillor Greenland.
Thank you, Leader. Do you know, I'm going to make an admission, and that was when this started and the report came initially from Nikki and from Simon Birch. I was a bit sceptical whether you could do this. I wondered whether it would actually work. And I am pleased to say that I've been proved absolutely wrong. It's early days, very much early days, but you've done some fantastic work on this project. And it really does look as if this is going to make a real difference to a lot of people. And thank you all so much for the work you've done. And I know it's not been easy, and we're a long way to go, but it's really encouraging to see this in front of us this afternoon. Thank you.
Colleagues, anything? Councillor Petrini.
Points of clarification. I know from 3.5 you suggest it's fallen by 5%, but you're not comparing like with like, are you? Because you're saying in year 2013-14 it was 1,620, and then in 14-15 1,542. Then we look at the table, and actually that's the figure, the 1,542 figure is at Q3, so we're missing a quarter, aren't we? So I don't know how you could say that when we're missing a quarter. You're not comparing like with like there. So I would err aside of caution on that. Also, two other questions. Cause and effect. I have a problem with cause and effect. How do we know this is not, this particular year we had more people passing away? And so forth. How do we know this is actually having the effect that we are suggesting it is? And thirdly, on the table about time monthly, total monthly hours spent, I noticed the wiggle line and the straight line on page 30, but how do I know you just haven't just cut the hours spent per individual?
First of all, on the piece on targets, I think I referenced that this was at Q3, and that we hope that we can make those targets. We're heading in the right direction. I think that's what I said. Okay, as for the wider points, Nikki, Matthew Gatehouse.
Excuse me. Thank you, Leader. I mean, Councillor Petrini is right. As you yourself pointed out, this is the position at Q3. But that figure isn't one which is cumulative and increases through the year. So what we've done is taken a snapshot, and we monitor the monthly position. So it was 1,542 clients as at a point in time in Q3. It may still be 1,542 at the end of Q4. In fact, our indications are it's slightly lower last time we looked at those figures. On the point of view of clients that pass away, clearly we're dealing with people in many cases at the more vulnerable end of society, and sadly we do lose clients. we know roughly what those numbers in and out are each month. And you're absolutely right, that is one of the factors that's built into the model. You know, on average, when we modelled this, that was around sort of 50 people per month, and that's been built into the equation and the modelling. But absolutely right, from month to month, there are peaks, there are troughs, but we've sort of averaged that out over the model. And that's why we prefer to sort of try and look at the longer term trends rather than purely the month to month situation, because we know this will have peaks and troughs in any short-term modelling. Apologies, Councillor Richardson. Do you remind me of the third question?
Yeah, sure. On page 30, about hours spent per, I think it's per client or something. How do I know you just haven't cut the number of hours spent?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, because the modelling you see, I think, is the number of hours included. This is just one of a number of different measures that we use. You know, as we often say with measures, these are a sort of tin opener or a spotlight. They're not the be all and end all, and the value of them is focusing on debate and allowing further questioning. There's a number of things we do to monitor alongside this, and you know, Julie, Simon, Nikki, and colleagues look at this data very, very closely on a regular basis. The hours is just one measure. We also look at the clients. We track client satisfaction and model the number of average hours per care package. So you're absolutely right. From this figure, you can't tell that is happening. You know, what I know from someone that sort of faces questioning from Julie, Simon and Nikki around the data that's there is we do have other data that verifies that this is sort of backed up, and what you're seeing here is occurring as a result of the average size of care package and a reduction of the number of people requiring care, rather than a cut, if I could put it like that.
Thank you, Matthew. Councillor Howarth? Okay, just before we move, Julie or Simon, obviously as heads of service and chief officer, what is your feeling around this? This is a good news story for us. So we feel it's evolved and it's in the right way. But I'd like to get, you know, you're in charge of the services. You know, what's your perspective? Perhaps Simon and Julie, perhaps.
Yes, it's definitely, from my point of view, a good news story. But as others have said, it's early days, and it's very much a moving. We called it we used the term learning because we recognised that we weren't just writing a business plan and delivering something. We were having to be flexible, understand how our communities respond to this. So already the conversation is moving, as you'll notice in the report, towards issues about place-based working, and Kelly and her colleagues are working much more closely with us on it. So it is constantly shifting. And I think the sort of challenges that just come from Councillor Petrulia are quite appropriate, and we do need to be held to account to understand those sort of things. But what we see and firmly believe is that we are helping people change the balance between the support they require from us, which is quite appropriate, and the ability they have to actually make their own connections, their own relationships in the community, and not knock on our door unless that really is the most appropriate response. So those figures dropping, we generally do believe, are showing some rebalancing, particularly when you look at what the trend would be if we hadn't intervened in that way. But it's a complex environment, and we're learning literally week to week on this. I don't know whether Julie wants to add anything or not.
Yes, I'd like to add just the context really around adult social care and the fact that this initiative sits as part of our wider transformation piece, if you like, and it's a big contributor towards that. But interestingly, just picking up Councillor Badruni's point about the packages of care, the emphasis that we're having to put into that aspect of the business as well. So when people do require high levels of support, it is about applying some of these principles to that as well. So it isn't sort of, you know, if you enter the front door and end up in community coordination, you're going to get one approach. It's a seamless approach across the whole transformation, and that's the benefit of it in lots of ways.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Simon. Okay, well, and thank you again, Ashley and Heidi, for coming along today, and Nikki for presenting and for authoring the report. I'll take us to the recommendations. This is purely for us to receive the report for information, and we welcome it, and we look forward to a further feedback. I'm not sure if we've got a time frame on that, but this is something which we want to watch. So, yeah. Okay, so we all agree to receive that, I'm sure. So thank you very much, everyone. Okay, I'm going to move us on then to the next item, and that is the disciplinary and dismissal procedures for school staff, including model disciplinary policy for schools, a revision. And that's Councillor Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And it will be noted that this is a revision of the existing policy. I think it's important to be aware of that. And it has been through JAG and has full union support. So the purpose of the report is to advise school governing bodies of the changes required to the existing schools disciplinary policy as a result of the staffing of the Maintain Wales Amendment Regulations 2014, would you believe? And it's also as a result of the revised statutory guidance on safeguarding children in education, handling allegations of abuse against teachers and other staff. And that was published by the Welsh Government in April. So the recommendation is that that be accepted and commended to governing bodies for adoption as soon as possible. And as I said earlier, it's the fact that the Welsh Government requires all authorities, school governing bodies and the management committees of pupil referral units to have regard to this statutory guidance. So that does allude to our revised policy. As I say, it's been through JAG and has the full support of the unions. Sally Thomas is here to answer any questions, Leader, and I'll stop at that.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody, anything? Councillor Akipane.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to ask one question. In the report, it states quite plainly that if a person has admitted an allegation or has been convicted of a criminal offence relating to that allegation, and in circumstances where there's information and evidence from police or social services, and they've admitted the offence, that it should actually, the process is easier because it can then go to the Chair of Governors to deal with it can be delegated to the Chair of Governors. I agree with that, but I just wanted to know from Sally, what sort of support is given to the Chair of Governors to be able to deal with something like this? Because I can understand, it may be the first time that they've dealt with the police or social services, and I can understand that if the offence has taken place and there's a criminal record, it should actually be a simple way to go forward. But I think in some responses, the Chair of Governors might need some reassurance that they would be supported through that.
Thank you. Just to answer that, I think, just for clarification, there still would be an investigation in line with due disciplinary process. This is arisen out of the fact that pre-existing policy requires all allegations to be investigated by an independent body, and that body at the moment is SAVOCA. So Welsh Government have changed the requirements so that SAVOCA would only independently investigate those allegations amounting to gross misconduct. So this, just to clarify, we would still look to have an investigation, but it would be led by the Chair of Governors, and obviously the local authority would provide all support in that regard. And actually we lay on training prior to any committee that would consider any disciplinary allegation or case.
Okay, thank you, Sally. Anybody else? Councillor Bertuni? No? Councillor Howarth?
Yeah, just one question. Generally, we find with these procedures in place, you end up with your head or your Chair of Governors, even the Vice Chair of Governors, being watered down because they've had contact with parents or staff, etc., reference to complaints, so they have to step out of the ring. So you have your complaints body of the governing body, and also you have an appeals complaints body, which cannot be part of the initial complaints body. And it is really complicated because I do sit on one. I just want to ask Sally, is this even making it even tighter there, reference to the issues, reference to this new model, whether you water because some governing bodies have only so many on the panel, and they only can do so much. So, i.e., if there is a complaint about an individual or about a member of staff, or even against the chair of governors, you end up with not having the panel to have a hearing and then to listen to an appeal about that hearing. Has the Welsh Government then put guidelines in that has to then go to a different panel? As reference to the panel you was talking about, that they've watered it down and taken it away from them?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point about governing bodies, and certainly we have some governing bodies where there aren't that many governors. This, however, the complaints procedure is a different procedure. HR-wise, we're talking here about the disciplinary policy and procedure. I think you may be alluding to the governor's complaints policy. So there is a subtle difference there. So we always advise at the outset of any disciplinary case that people on the governing body would need to be careful about being what we call tainted, so that they can provide robust and fair decisions at any hearing that's convened, and we provide that advice and guidance accordingly.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sally. Okay, I'm going to move it straight then to recommendation that the revised disciplinary and dismissal procedures for school staff, school disciplinary policy be accepted and commended to governing bodies for adoption as soon as possible. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. Thank you, Sally. On to the shared parental leave policy now. Councillor Murphy again.
Yes, thank you, Leader, and I welcome this as a really positive move. And it introduces the shared parental leave policy, which will apply to all employees, including school-based employees, with a recommendation that the policy be accepted. I'm sure that members will be aware that this is a new legal entitlement, and the regulations give parents the right to take shared parental leave and place a duty on employers to ensure that their employees are not penalised for using their entitlement or put pressure on to cancel or change a leave notification. Again, it has been through JAG and has obtained full union support, and it's here for us to accept the policy.
Thank you. Anybody wish to add? Okay. I think this is something we really do welcome. It's something we have to adopt, but it's something we welcome. So it's a good report. Glad it's coming forward. Councillor Petruni? Councillor Howarth? Okay, the recommendation is then that the shared parental leave policy be accepted. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. Okay, on to the item little 6, and that is to invest to redesign business case 15-16 and 16-17. Councillor Greenland.
Thank you, Leader. As we move further into this period of financial constraint, it becomes more and more difficult for us to see our way through. And I think we all recognise now that we actually have to redesign our services to get through this next period, to get the best use of our financial resources. And we know as well that our officers do not have spare capacity. They are working extremely hard at all levels. Yet it is necessary to ensure that we have the skills that will take us through this next period of time. Without the money in individual budgets to bring forward these changes and the additional skills that we need, then we need to look at what it is these funds in the Invest to Redesign funds to give us the finance to make these changes. It is there for exactly this purpose, and it does contain the money that we need over 2 years. And you will see the details of where that money would be spent in the support being brought forward in people like marketing support and somebody essentially to take on the jobs, the control of volunteers, because simply bringing volunteers into services without focusing those volunteers in the right way is not going to be very productive. This is a report that it has come from SLT, but it's been authored by Kelly Burns, so I would ask Chair through you if Kelly Byrne would like to add anything further at this stage.
Thank you, Leader. I think the only thing I probably want to add to that is that in previous years, the way we've worked Invest to Redesign in relation to the budget process is that every single service area or department that has produced a budget mandate, they've all had the opportunity to bid, if you like, for Invest to Redesign monies to help in the implementation of that budget mandate. But I think what we've found over the course of the last couple of years is that even though those services and departments are quite different and they're tackling different things by their very nature, some of the needs and the priorities underpinning that implementation and delivery are exactly the same. So as a leadership team, we've taken that much more strategic approach. We've sat back, we've had a look at all of the budget mandates, we've seen the common themes, and we've prioritised those things accordingly. So what you have in front of you today is essentially a representation of that. So in the first instance, the common theme that we've identified is around marketing, advertising, sales, because that's quite a specialism. And I think in this case in particular, relates to our income generation target, which is nearly £900,000. I say income generation, that's not quite correct because it's profit generation. We have to generate a lot more income than that to generate that amount in profit. The second area is around coordinating volunteers. You know that we have hundreds, possibly thousands of active citizens who all contribute to our services and functions in some way, shape or form, and that's great. But now that things are being reduced and cut back and we have income targets, we need to harness the contribution of those volunteers so they're adding real value where it counts. The third area is around levering in new external strategic finance, because with the Cardiff Capital Region, city deals, with new European funding, there are significant opportunities that might not just impact our economy, but actually benefit our council as well. And they do need to be investigated. And then the final area is around specialist programme management support. In the first instance, relating to the budget process, so that we deliver the budget efficiently and effectively. But I think in particular, around some of the new avenues and areas that we want to be able to start exploring in children and young people, and a couple of those are named in this report. So just to summarise, the purpose of seeking the investment in this way is to deliver the budget efficiently and effectively, but more than that, it's about the way in which we reshape, we transform and we improve our future service offer to communities.
Thank you, Kelly. That was really helpful. Again, you know, this report, we really do need to see this. We're on a journey of change in local authorities all across Wales, but especially here where our resources are so limited. So to make that change, clearly we do need that investment, that expertise to help us get the very best out of the limited resources we have and explore all of those opportunities out. So absolutely agree with the need for this. Colleagues, anybody want to add it? Councillor Murphy.
Yes, Leader, thank you. I very much support this, and particularly with a view to the recognition of the extremely hard work which is going on with officers in trying to meet the budget mandates, and of course not looking or not ignoring the fact that we've got another £10 million to find over the next 3 years, and control of the finances, and being as innovative as we can in service redesign is a very, very good idea. So I support this.
Okay, colleagues, anybody further to add? Councillor Haggerbain, sorry.
Just very quickly, thank you, Leader. Yes, I do support this, and I think there's a theme of community. If we have volunteers within our community that have skills that we can use and they're readily going to volunteer those skills, I think we do need to make the most of it, and they can help with various aspects within the council that perhaps also need a little bit of help. What I wanted to ask was, obviously, the amount of money in relative terms is going to help, but it is quite a large sum of money. Would we have some sort of update on how this was progressing along the way?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid point. Thank you, Councillor Hackett-Payne. I think the updates will be included in the quarterly updates that we have through the budget monitoring process, but the additional report that's now going to be brought to you on specific progress with each of the budget mandates, this will be built in and obviously will facilitate and I hope accelerate progress in those areas that you've outlined.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Councillor Petruni.
As Councillor Hackett-Payne pointed out, effectively this is a 420k investment at a time when services are being slashed.
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years, over 2 financial years, that's true. 210 this financial year and 210 next financial year. How could we justify that kind of spend in such austere times when all of us as councillors are getting complaints about services being reduced?
Well, I'd ask, how does an authority position itself for such a change in future where things will not be the same? Throwing money constantly into certain services is not going to give the long-term sustainable future we need. We need to invest in ways that can really change the shape of certain things to maintain that sustainable future for our services. I know it's a common theme in many authorities and in many administrations to keep throwing money into services. We haven't got the money now. We've got to do things in a different way. And this investment helps us to exploit the opportunities which lie out there. Councillor Greenland, I'm sure, wants to come in.
Yeah, this takes me back 3 years to the budget, the budget discussion that we had when we proposed putting money into innovation, which then brought forward £2 million worth of savings. At that time, you got up and you opposed that as well. Well, we now even know that the Welsh Government agrees with our approach. Perhaps you will come round to our way of thinking on this eventually, but I think we might have to wait a bit of time.
Councillor Murphy?
I would also add that in anticipation of this situation arising, we did actually build up the investor redesign reserve so that we could particularly use that reserve in these circumstances rather than taking it from the revenue budget so that we could protect frontline services.
Yeah, leadership needs to take a long-term view. It doesn't need short-term ways of doing things. That's why I think the government that we're seeing in Westminster at the moment has managed to turn this country around in many ways. And very clearly, we've got to be sensible and prudent in how we use our resources, and we need to invest for the long term, not the short term. Chief Executive wanted to come in, I think.
I'll be brief because I think Kelly wants to come back in. I just wanted to make a point so that as Cabinet, you're absolutely clear on my perspective, and I don't want to respond directly to Councillor Petruni because it's not my place to that's for you as a Cabinet. But my point is this: if you decide to sanction this investment, I need to be very clear with you. This investment will not stop services changing. I'll tell you absolutely squarely, just about every single service in this organisation will change to a greater or a lesser degree over the next 2 to 3 years. This investment is about, I believe, giving you the opportunity to manage and be in charge of that change rather than just float like a piece of flotsam. I don't come with any great desire to ask for this investment, but I think it falls on me to be very clear with you that we do need a slight injection of capacity. We need that now. It's my view as your head of paid service, which you can deny and ask me to rethink. I'm not a big fan of some of the more traditional mechanisms which tend to involve asking consultancy companies to come in and tell you things that you already know. I think the process of investing in our own people, developing our own knowledge and keeping attachment within our organisation to what we're trying to achieve, I believe is more likely to serve us well. But my point, I'll end with where I started. This is not an investment to hold services. This is an investment, but you have to be very, very clear. unless something dramatic happens to the funding of public services over the next 12 months, everything's going to move.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. Absolutely agree with every word you said, and that's the importance of taking a longer term view to redesign, to set us on a sustainable footing going forward. We cannot, nothing will stay the same in local authority as people would have experienced years ago. We're in a different world now, a massively different world, and it's going to get harder and tighter, and you know there is a requirement for us to do things in different ways and find new methods of doing things and exploiting the opportunities out there, and that's exactly what this gives us the opportunity to work toward. So it is the right thing to do, absolutely. Councillor Howarth, you haven't spoken.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm all for investing £210,000 in the financial year if we can make progress in delivering the mandates. What I will be opposed to, and I'm sure my group will be opposed to, is bringing in people to spend £210,000 on to deliver their mandates. And I believe that's not what the document says, but I would be surprised that if we did bring in other people to deliver. I think we got in-house, I think we got enough capability to do that, and a good experience to deliver the mandates working off the £210,000. Speculate to accumulate. If we can actually save £210,000 with investing £210,000 in delivering them mandates and saving more, that's got to be a good business deal for me. We have to think outside the box, and this is thinking outside the box. My only concern is, do we have, and I'll have to ask the senior officer, do we have the team in place at the moment to deliver what we're saying within the document? I think that's the most important thing for me, because I'd hate to think we spent another £80,000 off this 210 in delivering what we're saying within the document.
I'm going to invite.
That's what I wouldn't like.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I'll invite Kelly to address that. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Leader. To be clear, the £210,000 investment we're seeking, so 420 over the 2 years, is an investment. So, for example, in 15-16, this financial year, in bringing the budget down by nearly £6 million. So that is the rate of return on investment, if you like, that equates to that figure. We are proposing to add some temporary posts, some additional capacity, because that capacity doesn't exist, and that's why we're seeking this. But just to be absolutely clear, we have drawn on investor redesign in previous years. The reason this looks such a big figure is because we're chunking it up. This is the cumulative figure. In previous years, I'm not quite sure what the drawdown on investor redesign has been, but I'm sure it's been about in this ballpark anyway. But as I said in my opening, that's been attributed to individual projects and mandates. And the reason this figure looks bigger is obviously because we've chunked it up. But I think if I can just answer the question about the relevance of this, really, and if I can just draw on the example of marketing. So our staff are telling us that they know to sell services, because we do want to place an emphasis on income generation, because that means we don't have to cut services. They need to know how to write really good commercial business plans. They need to know how to rapid prototype, to get things up and running quickly so they can test and see if they work. They need to learn how to scale. They need to learn professional selling techniques. This is an investment that we have to make. And a good example I would give you is that our leisure service, in the last 3 months, they've had a run at trying to introduce new members, trying to up the number of memberships. And they've achieved that through getting some advice in and some expertise, which we've taken on board ourselves. We've just asked the private sector to share some of that expertise with us. And as a result of that, we've delivered 535 new memberships over 3 months through Mon Academy, Mon Training, through going out in all sorts of different settings. Now, that is a real specialism, but my guys in leisure don't have the time to spread that thinking. They're too busy doing their job because they've got pressures today. So what we're proposing is that we have someone in with that expertise that can spread that right throughout the council, and managers and leaders, staff everywhere can embrace those techniques and then attribute them to their work so they can make those really, really challenging targets.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. That's really helpful. I mean, capacity is the key here. We need some capacity, short-term capacity. Sorry, Simon, you wanted to come back in.
Can I just come back in then, and it's following on from the Cabinet member, Councillor Payne's, is measuring the outcomes. I think that's so important then, if we are bringing people in to deliver training and to deliver things so our officers then can learn from that. Prime example is spend under £1,000, you want 150, £200,000 return, and how do you measure that? And that is for me, if you're going to do that, it's no point spending that money and have not the return, because that's absolute utter waste of public money. So I'll go along with Liz there, is measuring this. We need to measure it and see what the benchmark is on the return that we invest. I think that's quite simple.
Yeah, and a scrutiny no doubt will be watching progress on the delivery of budget mandates and our various targets. I think you touched on this word capacity again, and I think I must take the opportunity just reiterate again how hard things are getting here, and how limited capacity we have. We're lean, and there's not a lot of spare, and we need that expertise. But I want to take that capacity issue a bit further. You know, we as members have to moderate what our expectations are of certain service areas. We cannot keep, challenging officers to deliver this this tight agenda, but then still expect them to deliver the things we've always been used to, because it's comfortable and it's what we're used to. We've got to get into the real mindset about what capacity reduction and lack of resources and service redesign is requiring of our staff and our officers in this organisation. And we need to actually start moderating our expectation as local members in line with that reduced capacity. And I think that's a piece of work I'm certainly going to be wanting to bring forward, perhaps in one of the near future meetings or even at the next council, to try and actually get members sighted on what their expectations should be as we move forward through a really, really difficult climate over the next few years. Okay, so with that, Councillor Green, want to come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to reflect on the discussion really, and to absolutely agree. Our services are going to have to change. There is no doubt about that. And to do that, we do need the skills to make those changes. That's why this is here. And I really do despair at Councillor Petruni's attitude that why not spend that on the services now? And in a year's time, we've still got the same problem. We haven't got the money to deal with it. I mean, it's just, to me, that's a crazy head in the sand approach. And we need to really look forward much more than that. And I welcome this report. And we will be watching carefully, because it is a lot of public money. And we will be looking for results from it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone who contributed there. I'll move us to the recommendations, and I won't read all of this out because there's a lot of it, but 2.1, 2.2 and its bullet points, and 2.3 en bloc. And I all in agreement with those? Thank you very much. Okay, item 7 I've deferred. We'll go on to item 8, joint housing solution. Councillor Burrows, thank you. Joint Housing Solutions Service Memorandum of Understanding. Councillor Giles Howard.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to be able to present to Cabinet the Memorandum of Understanding for our Joint Housing Solutions Service with Torfaen County Borough. As Cabinet and Scrutiny colleagues will know, the project's seen a continual and logical succession of reports over the last year, culminating in the document before you. The report notes that the combination of teams has already brought about financial benefits to both councils as specialisms and assets have been shared, and the structures for the housing options and private sector housing sections have been implemented. And more important, as paragraph 3.4 evidences, is the improvement of service levels and those families and individuals who will need to make use of the service. For specific roles and responsibilities, greater detail of the service levels is provided within the schedules attached towards the end of the agreement. And particularly relevant is the identification of the performance monitoring data that will be used to evaluate the success of the pilot, and which no doubt will steer any future decisions about the permanence of the model or any modifications needed. I would, of course, like very much to thank Ian and his team and their equivalents in Torfaen for driving it forward and for being accepting of change. And especially useful and an example of good practice have been Ian's frequent presentations and consultations with members of the Adult Select Committee, whose input has been appreciated. On that basis, Leader, I move the recommendation.
Thank you, Giles. Ian, is there anything you wish to add? No? Okay. Colleagues, would you like to? Anything? Okay. I mean, it made absolute sense. You know, we're going to be doing more and more of this sort of thing in the future. Have to totally agree with the memorandum understanding, and obviously there's a financial benefit through us doing this as well, as is recorded in the implications. So happy to support the report. Any points? No, Councillor Petruni? No, Councillor Howarth?
I just ask Ian, reference to scrutiny of this. I know we're going to, the leader's quite correct there, we're going to have to do more and more of shared work in implementation of this document. I've got no problems with, but when we talk about we're sharing the service, who will share the scrutiny of it? Will that be done between each select committee, or will it be done by Monmouthshire, or will it be individually done by each select committee, making sure that we're delivering what we're saying we're delivering?
As things stand at the moment, each authority will be responsible for their own scrutiny. We did have a discussion about the possibility of having a joint scrutiny arrangement, but the feedback that I received was that, you know, the capacity issues of that, but we'd obviously be open to anything outside of that, you know, perhaps joint members briefing or anything along those lines that you know, did facilitate any joint scrutiny.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Okay, so I'll take us to the recommendation in 2.1 then to approve the attached memorandum of understanding at Appendix 1. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. Okay, on to the last report today, but a really substantial one, and that's the third annual report on the Council Strategic Equality Plan. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Leader. This is our third annual monitoring report, and I'm pleased to announce that in the report you'll see that all actions are up to date as per the timetable. The most interesting part of the report is a list of good practice examples from 2013 to 14 and 14 to 15, showing that equality, diversity and inclusion is the big element within the services that we provide, as well as an organisation internally. There will need to be a new strategic equality and inclusion plan in place by April 2016. Just some of the highlights, you'll see some very good practice going on, an incredible amount of engagement with all our communities in Monmouthshire. I have to pay tribute to our team and our officers leader, particularly Alan Burkitt, Rachel, who is no longer with us on... maternity. Yeah, thank you. Who have really driven forward this piece of work over the last 3 years, from where, when I first presented our first annual report, we were actually behind schedule. So it just shows the big turnaround that there has been. Just another highlight of this year, that for the first time ever, Monmouthshire was mentioned in Stonewall's Equality Employers Index, where for the first time, out of 397 surveyed local authorities, we were placed 256th. Now you might think, oh, not so good. But we only had 3 months of data that were covered rather than 12. So as an equal opportunities and good employer, we expect to be further up the rankings next year, but obviously that will be included in next year's report. Alan Orfer is here to ask any questions.
Thank you, Phil. And Alan, if you do need to come, you may need to come forward to get a mic if anybody wishes to talk to you. Can I thank you and your team for the work? And this is a really, really progressive piece of work we're doing on the equality agenda, and obviously the Welsh language agenda. Obviously, there's lots of bits which touch into this wider picture. Some fantastic work going on, and real engagement, really, really strong, meaningful engagement, which has happened over the last 12 months, well, over the last few years, actually, a couple of years, but really starting to take some shape. So, excellent report before us. Colleagues, anybody wish to add anything at this point? No? Is there, Alan, is there anything you'd like to add at this point, or would you want to wait for any questions?
Not particularly. I think the good practice part just shows how much stuff we do. I don't think that some of it we know is equality work, but actually when you look at it, it is. So I think some of it is it's really, really good actually. When you've got a chance to look through it, some of the stuff we're involved with now and engaged with, I think is really groundbreaking. So good for your authority to ask.
Thank you, Alan. Councillor Petruni?
Just to say it's a fantastic report.
Councillor Howarth?
Yeah, may I just ask one question of Alan there? Members did start a programme of training on setting out quality plans, etc., and documents there. What I did notice within that, Alan, was through you, Leader, is the amount of members of staff which were there. Have we set a programme in place for staff, and are we setting any more programmes in place built off this document? Because there was quite I'd say there was as many members of staff taking that training with us as what there was members, and I find that extraordinary, because I thought the staff would have taken the training long prior to what we had taken the training as members.
Alan, any reflection?
Good question. I think prior to arriving, I don't think there'd been an awful lot of training. I think it's taking the training when we can. Unfortunately, now we've lost our sort of one vehicle for training, which is the WLGA, because the equalities team has been disbanded. But I think we're trying to get elected members and staff to be aware of the equality agenda. So it's very important that the staff know what they're providing, but also then that as elected members, you can challenge, you can scrutinise and ask the appropriate questions. So timing-wise, I think it's just who can attend when we can actually get the training. So there's no, it sounds like there isn't a plan. I think it is difficult to get staff and elected members to some of these sessions.
Yeah, no, that is a problem. We're working on that from both sides of things. Can I also ask you to take thanks back to the groups who worked really hard with us on that, and Councillor Hobson chairs MDEG, Monmouthshire Equality and Diversity Group, and really proactive group in getting involved and with the budget side of things, and our colleagues through Gavo and the Lights and Penny Walker for all of the work she's doing now in bringing the Access for All Forum together, which has been brilliant. It just goes from strength to strength, and we need to build on that. It's great stuff. Okay, Councillor Holden, want to come back in?
Yeah, I can share. I understand Councillor Howe's concerns. Historically, that may well have been the case, but inclusion. I'm going to use the word inclusion, Leader, and there's a very important point to make on this. The language is changing rapidly. We're not talking about diversity or equality anymore. We're talking about inclusion of everybody. Nobody left behind, no member of our community blocked. So let's talk about inclusion. It's not, by the very fact that I've said, is that this whole issue, the whole domain, is not a static one. It's dynamic. It's changed from 3 years ago dramatically, and it is going to accelerate and change even further in the year to come. In particular, we have a new document that we have to have in place by April 2016. So you will be seeing new initiatives and developments happening embedded across the organisation from top to bottom. That's going to require our attention and our understanding. What I would say to you is that we are an early adopter of the Welsh Government's Future Generations Bill. That talks about coherent and cohesive communities. If you really read and understand the intent of that legislation, I sometimes wonder if it's been copied from Monmouthshire about resilient communities and sustainable communities, it makes clear reference that nobody is to be left behind. We're not the only ones. I mean, we're actually, I think, in the public sector, being overtaken by what's happening in the private sector about inclusion. Just to give you some figures, and this will be important for our own organisation, figures are saying that, in organisations that are rated highly for their diversity and inclusion report a greater retention rate of staff by 19%, a 70% more likely success in new markets and in new initiatives, 45% improvement in market share, 57% better working relationships within team collaboration. If we can get that, as we've been talking about the previous item, within our own organisation, by including everybody, the message goes out, and it should go out today, Monmouthshire is an open, diverse county that welcomes everybody based on talent, and we want the best working in the best teams regardless. It's the talent that we want and the skills that we want, whether it's voluntary or whether it's on the payroll, because that will lead us to success, particularly with the measures and the financial climate that we have to face. So inclusion is absolutely integral to our performance as an organisation in delivery of services inside and out from now on, Leader. Thank you.
No, thank you. Absolutely agree. Okay, the recommendation then in 2 is that members endorse the progress made by the Council in the 3rd year of the Strategic Equality Plan as detailed in its third annual monitoring report. All in favour of endorsing that? Thank you very much. Thank you, Alan. Take our thanks back to the team. And can I thank everybody for attending today? That brings us to the end of our meeting. Look forward to seeing you at the next Cabinet.